So today on Crazy Carl Projects, we are putting a head gasket on a Subaru Boxer engine. All right. Done. Like, share, and subscribe. Thank you. Due to all the dinging in the background, we are going to be voiceovering the majority of this video, just so you don't keep hearing bing every 5 seconds. Trust me, you don't want to. It's not even in rhythm. Well, the first step that we took was to drain the oil out. And yeah, it was just a mite watery, as you can tell here. So although we did see quite a bit of gasoline in the oil, at least it wasn't milky. Though it did look like chocolate sauce and reminded me of Willy Wonka for some reason. Now we could tell this engine from the condition of the drain plug has been overheated more than a couple times with the cooked oil on the bottom of it. And then me and Carl, we compared our theories about what happened. I still kind of believe somebody put a massive turbo on it and blew it, then slapped the engine back together and sold it at auction. He theorizes, however, that they did replace the driver's side head gasket due to the condition of the bolts. Some of the bolts are snapped off underneath, as well as the condition up top, which I demonstrate here in a second. You can see, if you look closely, you'll be able to see some of the old caked on cooked oil, but you don't quite see anything new. After admiring the look of the oil in the sunlight for a little bit, it really does have a nice purplish color due to the gasoline in the oil. Crazy Carl revealed that when he was sticking his fingers in the oil flow earlier, he felt no metal particles in the oil itself, so we took that at the time as being a somewhat good sign. Little did we know what laid ahead of us here. But there is some good news. There was no coolant found in the oil itself, so at least those two fluid systems were kept separate. So here we started working on the problem side, pulling the plug wires and attempting to pull the spark plugs. Here Crazy Carl is demonstrating a handy trick he used to pull some of the spark plugs out. They were a little difficult for him to reach, so he grabbed a piece of fuel line as suggested by Kit and was able to pull them out using the line. That's cylinder 3. As you can see, it is burning oil. And this one is cylinder 1. Now cylinder 1 is burning coolant and oil. These plugs have got less than 500 miles on them, and they already look that bad. And before I forget again, this is Crazy Carl's 2004 Subaru Impreza, originally purchased to be a sort of a daily driver fun car for Crazy Carl after he fixed it up, but turns out he didn't fit. Well, it didn't fit comfortably. Now, despite some annoying dings in this, I'll let this clip play for a little bit just so you can see what it is. If you remember, we repaired the trunk on this to see if it leaks, or to stop it from leaking. And
it is dry despite all the rain we've got, so it worked.
Do a Derek move and tell us what it smells like in there. You gotta take a bigger whip than that. Big dramatic one.
Smells a little bit like an old tent.
A little bit like an old tent. So not mufflers and old sweat socks.
Killer bush.
He got attacked by a bush. Now what we did to seal this trunk up, and I'll try to remember to put the video link up, if not it's in our Subaru playlist, but we siliconed these seams right there that I'm pointing out right there. And as you can tell, this car has been sitting outside most of the year, actually, before we brought it in to do this head gasket repair. And the trunk looks fabulous inside. Hardly, actually not even hardly, no water got in whatsoever. Carl's just pointing out he needs to replace the trunk gasket to prevent the water from getting at the latch, and it'll be complete. Here we are examining cylinder 1 with the endoscope and not seeing any real major damage. No scoring, no scarring, no metal fragments inside, nothing really. And here's the cylinder walls of that same cylinder, and as you can see, the crosshatch looks pretty good. All the oil leak seems to be coming from the cylinder head, not from around the piston rings themselves. And once we got the camera down into the piston, this is a look at piston number 3, cylinder number 3. And as you can see, no damage to the metal that we can see here on this camera. There's the cylinder wall there. You can still see the cross hatching. So most of the oil seems to be coming from the head gasket leaking, not coming in from the piston rings, which is very, very, very good sign. Well, we took it as a very, very, very good sign anyway. After pulling the battery and examining the battery cable, we did take a look at underneath the battery tray there and noticed that at least none of that had rusted out. So there is more good news with this project. Also comparing notes here, some of the Impreza badging had been removed by a previous owner on this 2004 Subaru Impreza. There is also a WRX manual, owner's manual inside the vehicle itself, so the prevailing theory from here is that somebody was trying to either scam somebody or they had attempted to convert it into a WRX and failed. I'm still sticking with my big juicy turbo on it that kind of blew the works up. And our suspicions raised even further when VIN stickers were found inside the car that matched the VIN that was inside the windshield there. It's a little suspicious. Not saying for certain something happened, but that's a little suspicious to me. But hey, I could be wrong. And here's where the realization set in that the driver's side was burning oil as well, and he'd have to do both gaskets. This is the moment when you realize the project that you're working on your vehicle is going to take twice as long as what you initially thought it was going to take.
Just trying to get a good look at everything.
Some light scoring there, but not bad.
You can still see the crosshatch. I mean, it's 135,000 miles.
Oh, engine. It's not a new engine.
No, it's not.
It's got oil seeping.
I think that's just your valve cover gasket for the tube.
Okay, so it just needs its valve cover gasket leak.
Was the
It was covered in oil, but it's not.
the threads are.
Are
So
in
yeah,
all.
that's like the ones in the Taurus. It just needs the
Alright.
valve cover gasket and the spark plug tube, whatever gaskets are done.
Okay, so that's good.
So, translation, we don't have to remove everything over here and redo everything.
It just translates to over time. When you let it sit, you're going to get oil seeping into the.
Yeah.
Oil seep, which is what we see here. So it needs that all done, but not today.
That's not a today job. After giving our battery tray, absolutely disgusting battery tray, a quick wash and rinse with a little bit of a help from your local handy dandy camera guy, the battery tray liner thing actually got installed into our Subaru. So at least we get to install one thing this episode. That's in the car. After removing the reservoir, a couple of 12mm bolts for the radiator brackets, and draining the radiator, of course, we're going to try to next remove said radiator. And if you're doing this, especially if you've never done something like this before, video real quick, lots of photos.
Yeah, you see all of it, we're set up. I forgot to unhook the fan wires down here.
Oh yeah, that's what we forgot. The fan wires. Yes, make sure you unplug those too before you try to pull your radiator out.
Okay, and this is the fan wires. You just pull this little tab up, and this is actually supposed to be clicked into the fan housing, but someone previously either broke it or just didn't stick it back. I'll try to fix it after I'm done, stick it back where it goes. But yeah, this just pulls up and then you can pull it apart.
Just be aware that when you're removing said radiator, you will have a second set of fan control plugs on the other side. I swear, plugs are Crazy Carl's nemesis.
And it was just a push down one. So, two entirely different fan control power lines. Interesting.
That may not be that way on yours. It was that way on this one. After removing the fan belt guard, and those are 12mm bolts, by the way, we removed the fan belt here first by starting to detension the belt itself.
Okay, first you have to loosen this bolt on the pulley. Then you adjust it back.
We figured that out ourselves, and it wasn't after fighting with it for 15 minutes. I swear.
And you're also, since I'm taking this off, you are going to have to take this whole thing off. Which is 12mm too. So it's just two bolts here. You may actually be easier to do the whole thing this way. So, I'm learning as I'm going too, because most things I've run across, I get text with no pictures, or I get video where I can't see what's going on. So, I'm trying to help others that are going through, trying to work on these, because it's supposed to not be all that hard, but I don't know.
We're not the type of YouTube channel that just throws a bunch of washers on something and then calls it good. We try to show you all the mistakes we make along the way. We're not the type of people to 12th time it starts. First time started. Woo! We're not those people. That's what he thinks. I'm the one who edits these things. So,
okay, got that and that. That comes off. Put these bolts back so I don't lose where they go.
Yep. And as I said before, if you're doing a job like this, especially we got to take a lot of stuff off, and you've never done this before, lots of photos. Lots and lots. Masking tape and Sharpies are your friend. You can label everything as you go.
And take pictures of stuff. And believe me, on some of these projects, I go back and look at our videotapes trying to figure out, what did I do? Where did this go?
What do you mean some of them?
Well, that's not 100% of them. Okay, this
Most
looks like this loosens this bolt, and then you adjust. Oh, give me the socket.
Engine is getting hungry, where that is disconcerting. Also, there's been no blood sacrifice to the engine. That is also disconcerting.
Okay.
Some of y'all out there know what I'm talking about. The engine actually doesn't do anything until you bust a knuckle on it.
took this bolt out and lowered this down so this belt can come off. Well, I say that it was coming off a minute ago.
So that belt can come off.
Set that belt there, and then take this one off and set it there so I remember what side it came off of. Use my windshield for holding.
Looks like your car has eyes. looks like your car has glasses.
And then we will start having fun taking this off, because we got to take this off before we can start taking the head off. And I want to go ahead and get this off before I've unmounted the engine, because then the engine will move around more. So, because the one I'm going off of is one I haven't seen, but I've had 2 people tell me, including one where I read in a Subaru blog, which is if you're just doing one side, you take the engine mount loose and the exhaust off and the engine mount loose, and you can lift this enough to clear the fender. We will see. This stuff got to come off too. That should be over 10. Those are going to be 10. So, and this will move these, so I can move these lines out of the way. Yep, 10 millimeter. I've done this, taking these off, putting these on. So, I've done this before too. But I've got to take all this. Actually, I can just take all that plating off. So that's all I've got to come off. It's fun finding how everything's going to be coming off of here.
This is an adventure. We're on this together. Next, we remove this bracket so we can move this air tube, which was only finger tight. Finger tight is about to be a theme here.
I got to get off so I can get the rest of this plate off. And these have all been 12 millimeter. There's a bolt here, a bolt here, there's a bolt here, there's a bolt here. And I'm hoping those are the last 2. So I can remove this bracket plate. There seems to be a plate to mainly get attached things to.
Let's see if I can get a little closer to go.
There we go. And then I've got one more bolt somewhere back there. So there's one more back in the back. That's 5 so far. There's a 6 back here somewhere. I'm gonna have to find right there, I think. That feels like a bolt.
Yep, y'all see that right there. You go directly down this ridge right here, and there's your bolt. Once the final bolt was removed, we was finally able to release the bracket and get access to the fuel rail that was behind it. Now, the timing belt actually has an access panel that you can take a peek at your belt with. It's held in by 10 millimeter bolts. Our timing belt looked pretty good from a glance, and that led us to believe that possibly maybe somebody went ahead and changed the water pump like you're supposed to, and done some of the other things that possibly you're supposed to as well. Here he's pointing out all the 10 millimeter bolts that is on the panel that we'll have to remove, as well as pointing out that you may have to remove that pulley there. We'll see if we got to remove that here in the future. The bolt on the pulley was 22 millimeters, and with the help of an impact wrench, it came right off. At this point, it was a bit like exploratory surgery for us. You see, we do our best. We try to document our processes and the things we do here, but none of us has spent time in an ASE school or anything like that. We're just doing what we can and showing you what we do. In other words, this is for your entertainment purposes more than it is for education. Learn from our mistakes, please.
It's got a, I can't mess it up, it's got a pin.
It's keyed.
So it's keyed, so it'll go right back in, so that's not a problem. Now I got the one bolt I couldn't get to with this on. And
y'all just want to see what it looks like. Here's taking a
I
look
get
at the
looking for that
carnage.
pulley, I put it over there.
You know, you really should have a dedicated shelf for it.
I need a table for parts. And, you know, what I need is a cart for parts. But
On the list of things we need but can't afford. Please like, share, and subscribe so we can afford these things. Thank you.
yes,
Yes.
the wrong way with the right tools. It'll be less wrong.
The right tool in the wrong place can make all the difference, Mr. Freeman.
Well, sometimes the wrong tool in the right place can make all the difference too.
Yes. Mr. Freeman. Seriously, how did Last of Us get to be a freaking television show and that didn't?
I know, it's kind of funny. It might yet. Give it time.
Yeah.
They've run out of ideas.
Yeah. So HBO, make Half-Life a TV show I'd watch. When we removed the timing belt cover, we found something that looked like sawdust, actually, within the gasket itself on the timing belt cover. But upon further inspection, it was actually dried coolant. Apparently, the seal from the head on the passenger side had blown out so much that it was leaking coolant into where the timing belt was. This also brings up another point. When you're doing something like installing a head gasket, you don't torque things down to unga-dungas. You actually use the correct torque rating using the proper torque wrench. After all, the engineers wrote it out that way for a reason. I would not want to guess on something like that. Well, next, we had just discovered that all the timing marks on the engine and the pulley itself were not exactly in sync. One of the pulleys was about a tooth or so off from the others, which was explaining a theory of Carl's for the random misfire that it would get sometimes. Somebody may have pulled the belt off and put the new belt on improperly. Somebody may have, when they went to do the belt service, had just for one tooth got it off. And that one tooth can make all the difference between a smooth running engine and an occasional misfire and things. It was getting late and the internet had died. So as a precaution, we went ahead and removed the tensioner for the timing belt, just in case that's what's needed to make things flow smoothly. We'd expected to have to remove the pulleys and replace them. In fact, Crazy Carl bought a whole kit for it, but it turns out the pulleys had already been replaced. Here you can see him demonstrating them, basically playing with them. And finally, the timing belt comes off. We had photographed, videotaped, did just about everything you could think of to annotate the markings and where they were on this engine. We identified where all the timing markings are, as well as where all the timing markings are on the pulleys. Of course, it may not go as smoothly as we hope when we put everything together, but we're taking every precaution we can think of before we reach that point of pulling our hair out.
Yeah, I've got this all loose, and I'm debating. I'm trying to figure out whether or not I can drop the exhaust enough, lift this, and drop this down so I don't have to take this whole intake off. Because I'd really rather not take this whole intake off.
No.
So I will probably try to do that. And if that doesn't work, then it's coming off. Okay, another 14 millimeter. I had to take this pulley off because I've got to take this piece of plastic plating off so I can get the engine part. Because I am trying to not take this apart, which means I'll probably have to be able to slide this way, out and in. So, yeah. I have a feeling I'm going to have to take everything off, but I'm trying not to. There's supposed to be a way. I'm going to try to figure it out.
And now it's the start of day 2. We've got to, on this one, loosen the engine mount and the exhaust bolts. Possibly the transmission mount, which hope we don't have to go that far, but we'll see. And also hope we don't have to take out the transaxle, but we'll see as well. The point is to get the head so it can, the engine so it can just clear that lip right there so we can pull the head out easily. Now Crazy Carl also noticed some bit of blue plastic around the old head gasket that we were going to remove. It could have been protective sheeting around the gasket head, the head gasket, or it could be what it turned out to be, which was a more expensive head gasket that was supposed to stop the problem of the coolant leak. But why did the coolant leak if you got the expensive gasket? And that's where we're going to end it off this week. I hate doing cliffhangers in these things, but there's so much material that we got to go over that it's just unreasonable to expect it to be shoved all into 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour long video. But since I hate cliffhangers so much, I'll give you a brief little glimpse of what's coming up next week. Thank you everybody for hanging out. Please like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed it. If not, well, share it with somebody you don't like. After all, why should you suffer alone? And we'll see you in the next one. Have a good day.
But yeah, I just ended up having to use a breaker bar to get them.
New bolts?
Unloading new bolts. I don't know if you can see, but those threads are kind of laid over.
Q Ernest B. Wells.
They're looking, you can see in there, you can see where the gaskets failed. So long.